Your lungs are burning, but not because you're tired. They're burning because the air itself has become a solid wall you're trying to breathe through. You are currently pinned under 30 tons of structural steel and pulverized brick. It should have crushed you. It should have turned your internal organs into a dark smear on the basement floor. But instead, you're just annoyed. You push. It's not a graceful, cinematic heave. It's a grinding, ugly struggle. The metal groans, a high-pitched metallic scream that sets your teeth on edge. Slowly, the weight shifts. You crawl out from under the wreckage of what used to be a library, your skin coated in a fine layer of white plaster dust. You look at your hands. They aren't shaking. That's the problem. They never shake anymore. But let's back up. Let's look at how you ended up as the only thing still standing in a 3-block radius of total devastation. It started 6 months ago. Not with a bang, not with a lab accident, but with a dull, persistent itch at the base of your skull. You were working a desk job, data entry for a logistics firm. Fluorescent lights, the smell of burnt office coffee, and the soul-crushing rhythm of a keyboard. The first sign wasn't strength, it was the clock. You were staring at the digital display on your monitor, 4:59 p.m. You waited for it to flip to 5. You waited and waited. You thought the computer had frozen. You looked around the office. Everyone was frozen. Sarah from accounting was mid-laugh, her mouth open in a silent, jagged O. A fly was suspended in the air next to your water bottle, its wings a static blur. You blinked and the world snapped back. The clock hit 5 p.m. You went home and tried to sleep, but the world was too loud. Not the neighbors, the world. You could hear the hum of the electricity in the walls. You could hear the friction of the wind against the window pane. You could hear your own heart, a heavy, rhythmic thud that sounded like a drum in an empty hall. Within a week, the physical changes followed. You didn't get bigger. You didn't grow muscles like a bodybuilder. You just became dense. You stepped on your bathroom scale and watched the needle spin past 200, 300, 400 pounds until the internal spring snapped with a pathetic ping. You looked the same in the mirror, but the floorboards creaked under your feet in a way they never had before. Then came the realization of what you could do. You were at the gym, trying to see if you could still move. You started with the 50-pound dumbbells. They felt like hollow plastic. You moved to the bench press. 3 plates, 4, 5. You weren't even breathing hard. You realized then that your limit wasn't your muscles, it was the equipment. The metal bar started to bend around your grip before you even felt the weight. You didn't put on a mask. You didn't buy spandex. You just started walking. The first time you intervened, it wasn't a bank robbery. It was a stalled car on the tracks during a rainstorm. The driver was a kid, maybe 19. Eyes wide with a primal terror as the bell started to chime and the gates dropped. You didn't think, you just ran. The world slowed down again. The raindrops hung in the air like diamonds. You reached the car, grabbed the rear bumper, and pulled. The tires screeched against the wet pavement, smoke pouring from the rubber as you dragged 2 tons of dead weight backwards. The train roared past a second later, a blur of silver and screaming metal. The kid looked at you through the rearview mirror. You didn't wait for him to get out. You turned and walked into the shadows of the overpass. You thought it would feel good. In the movies, this is the part where the triumphant music swells. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a job. A heavy, permanent job you never applied for. The Guardian headline started appearing a month later. People love a mystery. They love the idea of a secret protector, but they don't see the cost. You can't hug your mother because you're terrified you'll crack her ribs. You can't go on a date because the sound of someone else's pulse is so loud it drowns out their voice. You are a god, trapped in a world made of wet tissue paper. And then he showed up. You were sitting on a park bench at 3 a.m., trying to enjoy the silence, when the air pressure changed. It felt like being at the bottom of a pool. A man sat down at the other end of the bench. He looked tired. Not long day at the office tired. He looked centuries of exhaustion. "It gets heavy, doesn't it?" he asked. He didn't look at you. He was staring at a fountain, and as he spoke, the water stopped falling. It hung in midair, a shimmering curtain of suspended droplets. "Who are you?" you asked, your voice sounding like gravel in your own ears. "A warning," he said. "I was the Guardian 40 years ago. Different city, same story. You think you're helping, but you're just a band-aid on a gunshot wound. You save one person, 10 more die somewhere else. You stop a car, a bridge collapses a mile away. The universe likes its balance, kid, and right now you're tipping the scales." He stood up and the water crashed back into the fountain basin. "They'll start coming for you soon. Not the criminals, the things that are meant to keep the balance." He was right. It started with the accidents, freak storms that only hit your neighborhood, earthquakes that didn't show up on any seismographer, and then the others. They weren't people with powers, they were corrections, tearing through the fabric of reality like ink through water. Which brings us back to the rubble. You stand up, shaking the dust from your hoodie. The thing that threw you through the library is standing in the middle of the street. It doesn't have a face. It looks like a humanoid shape carved out of static and shadow. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't speak. It just is. It moves and the asphalt ripples like liquid. You charge. When you hit it, it's like hitting a mountain. The shockwave shatters every window for 4 blocks. You swing, a punch that could level a skyscraper, and it catches your fist. The air between your hand and its palm ignites from the sheer friction. You realize in that moment that you aren't a hero in a story, you're an anomaly in an equation. The fight lasts 3 minutes, but for you, in the slowed-down reality of your mind, it feels like years. You trade blows that rearrange the city skyline. You take hits that would vaporize a normal human. Your hoodie is gone, your shoes are melted, your skin is glowing with a dull internal heat. Finally, you find the opening. You drive your shoulder into its chest, put every ounce of your impossible density into one movement, and push. You don't just knock it back, you tear through it. The static shape shatters into a million points of light, dissolving into the atmosphere. Silence returns. But it's a different kind of silence. It's the silence of a graveyard. The sirens are coming, thousands of them. You can hear the helicopters 2 miles out. You can hear the panicked breathing of the people hiding in the cellars of the surrounding buildings. They're not cheering, they're terrified. To you, you're not the man who saved the kid from the train. You're the monster that just leveled the downtown district. You look down at your hands. They're finally shaking. You run. You don't run like a man, you run like a kinetic projectile. You're back at your apartment in seconds. You strip off the rags of your clothes and stand under the shower, the water steaming as it hits your overheated skin. You look in the mirror. You look exactly the same. That's the cruelest part. The world has changed, your life has ended, and you still have the same tired eyes and the same crooked nose. You lie down in bed, but you don't sleep. You can't. You're listening. You hear a fire starting in a kitchen across town. You hear a lung collapsing in a hospital wing. You hear a tire blowing out on the interstate. In the movies, the hero accepts the burden. They look out over the city and vow to protect it. But as you lay there, feeling the sheer weight of your own body pressing into the mattress, you realize the truth. Superpowers don't make you a hero. They just make the world smaller. They turn every tragedy into a personal failure. They turn every moment of peace into a lie. You didn't ask for the strength to move mountains, because once you move one, everyone expects you to move the rest, and eventually your back is going to break. The sun starts to rise. Your alarm goes off at 6:45 a.m., same as every day. You reach out to turn it off. You try to be gentle. You really do, but the plastic casing crumbles into dust between your fingers. You sit up and stare at the wall. The apartment is cold. The silence is deafening. And the weight of the entire world is sitting right on your chest, waiting for you to get up and carry it for another 24 hours. You don't have a choice. You never did.